Hi, everyone. I wanted to take a brief moment and let you know that there were quite the audio issues with this podcast recording, unfortunately. And just first and foremost, my personal audio didn't kick in until about minute 40. I have no explanation, no understanding as to how this happened. However, I do want to go ahead and apologize that my audio isn't as clear as usual for the first 40 minutes of this conversation. Thank you for your patience. Let's get into it. This one was a long time coming. Many of you are very familiar with Andrew McUtchen, the captain of the ship known as Time and Tide. With the growth of his business and the expansion into brick and mortar retail, I was super excited to have him on the show. Andrew is a guy with tons to share, and I can't thank him enough for his candor and being open to many of the business-related topics discussed. Being a man of service and providing wonderful hospitality is all in a day's work, and this podcast is just the conduit through which to share it all, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. Obviously, this is been a long time coming.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had you on my radar for so long, and it's very common that I'm completely just cold calling people via DM on Instagram, being like, "Hey, look, I'm a fan. Would you want to come on my show?" And they're like, "Who are you?" And so it's one of those things where you've been on my radar, and I don't know how it took me this long to reach out to you. And
Yeah, was it because I remember listening to you, like I binged a lot of Standard Age through the pandemic.
oh wow, that's
And
cool.
one of my highlights of the pandemic in terms of like super random and usually not programming is that I listened to your interview with Way where he talks about being on a ranch and like this he's telling this whole Cormac McCarthy story and I'm just like I don't know how I ended up here, but I'm liking this. Yeah,
Which, by the
sweet.
way, where do we find you with this Time and Tide headphone logo behind you? Do you have a podcast studio in your shop?
We do actually. I've got to show off here a little bit.
Oh
This is
shit.
the space.
This is unreal, dude. This is a dream for me. So, all right, look, I'm gonna derail my conversation as I often do, like right at the start. How are we feeling about brick and mortar retail?
Oh, dude, it's something that to say this out loud and to mean it is just it just doesn't make sense to me to be saying this, but I find something that I find this whole concept of retail so addictive and I'm
Yeah.
so like childishly addicted to the excitement of people walking in this door and having an idea about a watch they want to buy, having no idea about why they're here, having no concept of anything that's in here apart from those watches, having a very specific idea. I'm just like this kid that is
Yeah.
so irritating for everyone in my team to deal with because I will go up to someone mid negotiation and just be like, "What are you considering? Have you also thought about this?" So
Oh.
I'm feeling really good about bricks and mortar, but it's still completely weird to me that I'm even connected with bricks and mortar in any way, and that it's become like where I physically live out my days right now. Like I have these beautiful spaces within the bricks and mortar to sort of loiter and lurk and just be kind of like this Australian rock spider that's waiting for someone to walk through the door. But I'm feeling really good about it. It's the biggest pivot we could have made. It's an obscene amount of capital investment in a business that's a media business, but I'm feeling good about it. And the part of it that's the most surreal is just how into it I am from a non-commercial point of view, just from a sheer. I love this dynamic with people that come in that want to go on a journey. They want to see what their money could buy. They want to consider what else if I'm not going to get the Baltic. Uh, I'm trying to think of what would be a purchase decision like the Aquascaf. Should I get the Serica 5303 dive watch for the same money? You kind of have these all these YouTube videos that I've done over the years come to life, and I get to annoy my sales team so much. So long answer, but I have to give you that because A, to be in retail is surreal. B, to be enjoying it so much is surreal. And C, I think for us not to be under immediate and sort of terrifying pressure is a great privilege. Like we seem to have hit a spot here in London that's made this a good decision. So I guess all these things are luxuries of it having been pretty good decision.
Okay, before I forget the 6 questions, let me just rifle them off and we'll maybe,
Hit
tick
me.
them off one. Okay, where in London are you specifically? Yes, I could have Googled it, but I have not. Sorry. That's question one. Two, did you have retail experience for any realm whatsoever prior to this?
Mhm. So
And oh, I'm trying to think of the other 4 questions.
I'm gonna forget
Uh,
them all. So let's
yeah,
just
yeah,
do the
yeah.
first two.
Let's just do the first two. Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
The first question was, where are we? We are within sight of Oxford Circus Station, Oxford Street, Regent Street, big crossroads. We're within sight of where people come out of Oxford Circus Station, so
Amazing.
it's really central. We have the Vans flagship to our right. We have the Nike flagship next to that. We have yeah, we're in a really good spot here, right in central London. We're on the
Amazing.
first floor. We've got 170 square meters, which is in this really nice. It's like a corner block, so we have um, windows all the way down one side and around the corner. And experience in retail. I worked in retail. I worked when I was a student and a kid. I worked in a jeweler, really cheap jewelry in a shopping center, but never in watch retail. So I did have some experience in jewelry, like I suppose like a mall jeweler. Like I think the highest I had like Citizen Eco drives with the real top shelf product. Uh, but no, never any retail that's anything like this.
So did your affinity for watches come through that jewelry shop or did it precede that?
Oh no, definitely not. They didn't proceed that either. So
Okay.
this is it's sort of a funny. I realize I'm so alone in this latecomer. I just don't meet many people who came to watch this so late. But my passion started to maybe there was a spark that was lit when I was a journalism graduate, English major, and I was working at a custom publishing company, and they had a custom publication for the Hourglass chain. It was called Fine Time, and it was based in Melbourne. And it was actually the Hourglass team in Singapore were
Yeah, Mike
working.
Tay.
Mike Tay
Yeah,
were working to do a custom publication called Fine Time.
cool.
So I had a triathlon magazine. I had a magazine by the Starwood Hotel Group, which is like the Sheraton, Le Meridian, St.
I
Regis.
used to work for Starwood.
No way.
Yeah,
No
in
way.
college. Yeah, yeah.
Get out. So it's a big group. That's a big luxury chain, right? Like that's a lot of the world's best hotels. So I did, that was probably my biggest. It was called Stardom. It was a hotel magazine. So I had this broad spread and then a couple of travel magazines for Australia. So
It's
in the
cool.
mix of my sort of remit was this solitary watch title. And by putting that together and looking at everything that the Hourglass had, I saw a Panerai and I was like, I'm just so so one day I'm gonna have that watch, and there's something about the design language of a Panerai that makes it stands out. Many people, I think, the more you get into watches, and you say, "What was the first watch you really noticed?" For a lot of guys, it's a Panerai,
Hmm.
and strangely enough, however many years after that first, and then I ultimately did get that watch. Um, but
Still have
that
it?
no, it was
Ugh.
it was a hugely it was a sad saga. I bought it when I couldn't afford it. Have you ever bought a watch that was way above your wage? You know, when
Uh,
you're not acting your wage.
last year.
Excellent. Excellent. What was that?
Well, a Longa.
Really?
Yeah, so but in fairness, I sold 6 watches to buy it. So is it above my wage? Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. But could I afford it? It depends how you define afford. Is the money available? Yes. Did I finance it? No.
Can I ask you a question? This is something, if anyone wants some marital advice just for free as part of this, it's when my wife comes to me with a problem, I've learned to ask her a question immediately. Do you want comfort or a solution? And in your case, when you come to me and say, was I acting my wage? Could I afford it? My immediate question to you is, do you want enabling or the truth?
Right, exactly. 100%.
Because
And
I'm
trust me,
going
I'm
to
well
enable you,
aware.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're drug dealers at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No one under
Um,
we all enable each other.
well, it's funny because retail, as I mentioned, I worked for Starwood. I worked the front desk at a Sheraton hotel when I was in college, and I think that
Right.
job
I can
lasted
see that.
maybe 9 months
He's a good
potentially.
looking dude, guys. If you haven't looked
Well,
up Wes from Standard Age, he's an American dude. He's a good
yeah,
looking guy.
yeah, people, I am a stereotypical American dude, ball cap and everything.
You do look like that, but you got the jaw. You got that Chris Pratt or the what is it? The Henry Cavill jaw going.
Oh, well,
He's an
that's
American dude.
beyond kind. Thank you. I wish. What the reason I bring up Starwood yet again is just the simple fact that like what we're talking about at the end of the day in brick and mortar is hospitality, right? Like it is a
Yeah.
restaurant, it is a storefront, it is a hotel. These are all places where people can come, get away from home, enjoy themselves, celebrate potentially. And I speak, even though my store is online, I dream of owning a brick and mortar one day. In fact, I had a brick and mortar concept before I even had a brand. And
Yeah. I get it.
to your point, the investment has precluded me from getting into that so far. And we'll get more into the finances and stuff because I'm curious. Because I do want to open a brick and mortar, as I said.
Are you stocked in London? We should just stock up in
No,
London.
done. I'll see you in April.
Deal. Okay. Hey, ladies and
Um,
gentlemen, you just had a deal take place. I'm holding you to that.
wow.
We need some of your stuff.
Oh, well, sure. I would love nothing more. And in fact, I need to introduce you to a few different friends of mine in London, frankly. One of them, are you into cycling at all? We're going to talk. God, we are all
Yeah.
over the map
We
right
got we
now.
got some stuff here. We got
We
some
we
stuff to
got a
talk
lot of
about.
stuff to talk about. But are you into cycling at all?
Not at all.
Okay, so I have a previous podcast guest who's now become a friend of mine, James Thomas. He owns Bicycle Richmond, which is in the Richmond district, obviously, and
Yes. Which
very
is right
high-end
next to
shop.
where I live, in fact, actually. I live in Chiswick, which is bordering Richmond, pretty
Oh,
much.
nice one. Okay, so
Yeah.
you and James will get on like a house on fire, I'm sure. He's a zany dude. He's got guts and grit, and yeah, I think you'll like him. Um, anyway, you will absolutely meet him. And I just anyway, this all just goes back to hospitality and like hosting a
Yeah.
party, if
I
you
get
will,
it.
like having a place
Mm.
for somebody to come. And I wonder if that's something that is really driving you internally, that you being the consummate host, if you will.
I think, yeah, accidentally or quite intelligently getting to the heart of it here because heavy sigh. The reason I got into watches was to connect with people. And the
Yeah.
reason and watches at their best connect us with people without prejudice. And I
Mm.
use those words because watches can be super toxic. Get-togethers can be the most demoralizing experience. You know, the judgment, the flexing, the swinging dicks, the this goes on the table, then that goes on the table. The whole what was his name in American Psycho, where they do the business card and
Patrick Bateman.
uh, yeah, yeah. Patrick puts down his card, and someone, to his horror, has a thicker gram weight with a better gold embossed, and it can be like that at a get together. And I've
Right.
never enjoyed actually the. I haven't found my space to physically interface with this hobby, and yet I believe that there could be a space that might have attracted me to it if it had existed before time and tide, but I never
Love
found
that.
it.
Yeah.
And it is a place without prejudice where you come. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just saw an ad for, oh, my friend just bought a Baltic, or he bought a Studio Underdog for £500, and you can imagine you turn up at a get together at Red Bar, and I think Red Bars are, depending on the chapter, some of these places are really friendly to newbies, but
Hmm.
it's not often the case. And I, as not so much as the host, but more as I think I'm managing to create a culture in this space with my team that is like reading the reviews and reading the simple point that people make, which is I walked in there uncertain and intimidated, and I was greeted, and the person seemed to enjoy going on the journey with me, or the person loved to show me the options that in my price point. The
Yeah.
person didn't judge me. It's just we are. This is super corny, but I think that we are being the change we wanted to see in the world, and
Yeah.
we're being that space that. And I think there's some you must do this thing one day, because when you sit in your little nook in your space and if you've set the culture right and the temperature's right and the music's right and the space is beautiful and standard H stuff is arranged just how you want it.
Right.
And the logos in neon behind you,
Right.
which is the
Right.
most aggrandizing thing, but it is a podcast corner, so it's kind of makes sense. It's my Rogan moment, but no, it is it's a level of sort of brand actualization that it's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
I do have to say, if we had no one coming in and we weren't making sales, I'm pretty sure the parade would be pissed on 100%. But because we're doing this, and there are people walking in as I sit here, and I'm still kind of just a bit in shock from the Esquire review on the weekend that just said some really nice things, and again just kind of brought home that the vision is not. Sometimes we have these super intellectualized brand ideas about what does standard H stand for, how are we different, what are we aiming to what is our uniqueness. It all exists in your head,
Right.
and then sometimes you read a story where someone just delineates every single thing that they
Hmm.
liked about it, and it's everything you wanted to achieve. So
Right.
it's you've got me on a little bit of a high, but mostly I'm just this rock spider that can't wait to scuttle out there and ask like this woman over here what she's going to buy for her husband. And I've got to stop doing this, man.
Right. Well, it's funny because, providing the service that or being the change you want to see in the world, it sort of dovetails into the mentality, the emotion behind gift giving as well. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is most often what's twofold. There's one thing that brings up Waco, and then there's another. So the first thing is when you give, you often feel better about yourself when you're giving, right? Not just taking all the time. Now, granted, you're not giving away watches, but you are giving away an experience. And I think as a business owner, that's got to make you feel like $1 million, first and foremost. And second of all, I think Way is the one that I've heard most talk about the Ralph Lauren quote of the most miserable people in the world are those who spend too much time thinking about themselves and
Mhm.
not about other people. And I think those are very, very closely related. And I think you're absolutely right. The if and when the day comes that I open my own shop, I'm probably going to sit in the corner and cry on night one, just out of joy, happy
Yeah.
tears. You know what I mean? It's an
Yeah,
emotional
dude.
thing.
It's an emotional thing, and then the best thing of all is I could pull in any of my team right now, and they're excited, man. Like they feel like they're
Yeah.
part of something. They read the Esquire story from Johnny Davis, and just I think they all felt the glow up from it, and they felt like it was written based on what they've done, because there was so much mention in there of service and of the non-transactional tone in here, and
Hmm.
I feel like they all. eh, If you succeed to a point where your team feel like they're part of something,
Yeah.
that then it's pretty special. I love what you said there about Way and about Ralph and about service, customer service. If I can, do you mind if I just segue a little bit?
That's what these
Um,
are about, as you know.
I do. I love that you never rein someone in until it's usually too late. But no, I want to talk about service because I think if there was a single word that could sum up a second chapter of my life, it's service. When I met my wife and we were dating, and within 10 months, I'm like, I'm going to ask you to marry me. And then within 15 months, we were married. And then within however long, we had a kid. And then we had a kid and then a kid. We had 3 kids in 3 years. Um, I realized at a point, what have I done? I've written myself out of my own life story. I am just in service all the time.
Mm.
And where are my goals and dreams and aspirations? And then I realized, dude, you've never slept better and you've never actually been happier than when you weren't serving yourself. And that's what I want to bring this back to, is that, yeah, I discovered through that experience of basically servitude to my girl gang. I've got 3 girls under 11 now, and a cat, which is a new development over the last 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
That's another subject for another day. But I'm truly now serving humans and animals at home, and I feel that it's a real welcome change for someone that spent many years thinking about themselves. And I was focusing on my goals and my dreams and how do I make my vision come true. And strangely enough, it didn't lead me to this point as much as soon as I stopped thinking about myself and what I wanted to do in my life, in my career as an entrepreneur, as soon as I was just serving these little people and their mother, everything started coming true. And the less I focused on myself and the more my life was about service, the more successful I became. And now I feel that I serve the 35 people in my company to a point where I want them all to be, I truly want their chapter with me. And I'm realistic enough to know that for a lot of, the younger team, this will be a chapter of their life. This won't be 10 years or 25 years. I can dream, but I would have to work hard to remain the right bridge for them to wherever they're going for that period. But there's a consistent theme, whereas, and forgive me for rhapsodizing, but
No.
service fucking transforms your life. And somehow there's a great paradox. It's a bit like fitness or exercise. Sometimes the way to create energy is to use energy. And when you're really tired, the best thing to do is actually expend your last bit of energy on a workout. And then suddenly you get a whole day extra credit,
So true. It's so I
And
can't tell you the number of times I've gone to the gym exhausted and come
yeah,
out
I got
energized.
nothing.
It's like I don't even
It's the
know.
same
It
with
doesn't
service. I
make
don't
any
know how it
sense.
works. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. So for me to get home exhausted and then spend 2 or 3 hours cooking for my kids, hearing about their day, and just watching a Netflix show with my wife, or focusing on her, how she's doing with this transition, the relocation to London, which is a big change for us. Somehow
Mhm.
you end up energized. It's the same thing, and it's the same with customer service. Like no matter how I feel, if there's someone there that sees me and it's like, oh, you're the guy from the show, or you know, I've seen you on YouTube, and you're like, oh god, I just don't have it in me. I'm tapped. I've got no
Right.
social battery. But then you go over it. There's a consistent theme here of service renews you, and somehow by taking your eye off your ambition, you fulfill your ambition. I don't know how it works.
Mm. Interesting. When did the like light bulb moment happen where you realized this? Was it like in the last year or so, or was it like years ago? The service and like the
With do you have kids?
so the reason I ask, and this is a question I've asked on the podcast before, is how has fatherhood changed you? Because I've interviewed mostly men, obviously, but we are due in May with our first.
Man, it's the great relegation, and it's not all good. The shock and horror of what you've actually signed up for is,
Yeah.
I mean, it is totally belittling and diminishing, and it's a shocking relegation.
Yeah, you're
For
never
me,
ready.
no, you're never ready. And if you say you're ready, you don't. I'd just laugh. I'd be like, you have no idea what's going to happen, man. But the light bulb moment is just that, and it's only I can't speak for everyone. Whereas like I don't know you deeply enough to say this is going to be great for you. But
Mm,
if you are the sort of person that is super driven and very self-focused and very clear on you and your vision and your bullshit, I'd speculate that the light bulb moment comes when you realize, shit, I've done something irreversible. This
right.
little person, I want them to outlive me as a number one fundamental rule of my life. They must
Mhm.
outlive me. Therefore, this isn't a short chapter of your life. This will be the rest of your life. And then when you'll either feel a liberation of, oh my God, thank God it's not all about me. Thank God the spotlight isn't on me and my decisions and my bullshit. Or there are people that feel somewhat diminished by that new responsibility. I was definitely the former. I was so sick of thinking about myself, and I, yeah, I was ready to serve because. And then I think that the greatest shock has come that through the biggest spike in my productivity and success has come with the more kids I had, the more successful I got. And it was partly
Huh.
because you feel extra driven. Like as you get close to May, you'll be asking yourself questions like, how am I going to afford college? How am I like, you're going to feel this real sense, extra sense of purpose and pressure. But the light bulb moment just came when it was like, oh, I now have this little person to put in front of me, and for me, that was a massive liberation. And then the strange outcome was that if I'd have had someone once said to me the other day, where would you be if you hadn't had kids? Like, imagine how big Time and Tide would be. I'd be like, I don't even think Time and Tide would exist because of all of these ironies and these strange things, like this extra sense of surge of purpose you'll have. Like, if there is going to be a Standard H retail store, you having a kid is going to bring that closer to you and not further away, I'm going to guess.
Well, it's funny you should say that because like I've just as an observer seen so many folks have kids and seen their businesses grow as
Yeah,
opposed to
it's weird.
close, right?
Yeah,
Um, so I'm optimistic that it will apply to me. I sure as hell hope it does. And then there's also, speaking of like crying in a corner out of joy, there's just like this sentiment I have about like raising my kid in my store, having them,
yeah,
fuck up the stacks of t-shirts, like, and having to
yeah,
fold
man.
them again. You know what I mean? Like just the stupid shit.
I want this for you, man. I want to do a. I've seen you've done a part two with Blake and Tim and a few other people from the industry, and I want to do a part two with you when your kid's fucking up your t-shirt stacks.
Yeah. I
We
like
can
it.
talk about we
Uh,
can talk about how that's both the most irritating thing, and like it's not even funny at the time, and also just about how there probably wouldn't be t-shirt stacks if you hadn't had the kids. So
right, and you wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you mentioned the relocation from Australia to England. Was it for this store specifically, or what was the underlying reason of the relocation, would you say? Or are there multiple?
we hit a ceiling, man. Like Time and Tide got to a point where we had Zach in America, who was our US editor. We had a team in Europe that were Marcus is my creative director, head of video. He lives in Amsterdam. Um, we were growing, but we were very much hitting a ceiling.
Mm,
And that is that Australia represents 1% of Swiss exports. So the at that point as a media business, there's only so much budget you can extract from a brand when you're technically an
a
Australian
small market.
based
Yeah.
website. Small market, a lot of the money was coming from the local brands. We did manage through the pandemic to access global budgets for a lot of the work we were doing, but I couldn't shake the stigma that we were an Australian media site. And that's cute. Hey man, that's cute. I'm happy that I like that for you, Mr. 1%. So as much as at various points in the pandemic, I think looking at some of those traffic estimator sites, Time and Tide was the second biggest watch website in the world at points. It's a bit of a wrangle from the usual suspects in there, but yeah,
Sure.
we had a really good pandemic in in the sense that the team we just would hang out every day on Zoom, coming up with we really had a creative period where we decide we kind of got to the essence of how we're different to the other sites and
Hmm.
doing a lot of pop culture stuff and a lot of fun stuff. And we managed to grow the audience to a point where we accessed global budgets. But after the pandemic and everyone went back to normal, and I was still kind of. But the real thing is, I was traveling to Europe 5 months a year,
Mm.
and for someone I've written a book about fatherhood, it means that much to me. I wrote a book called The Fatherhood, as in the neighborhood, and I pulled all of the advice that I got from Mark Wahlberg, Hugh Jackman, um, Joe Brum, the founder of Bluey. I did we did an epic interview with him talking about fatherhood. So we it means so much to me, and yet I was being a complete hypocrite because I was spending 5 months a year in Europe to run shitty watch media business that was only 1% of the watch world because that's how it looked. So that a change had to come, man.
How do you rank the media outlet and like what you do to reach readers, reach interested people? You know, obviously you got brick and mortar, you've got like things like this, like podcasts, you got YouTube. What, how do you manage? I, I don't know if priorities is the right word, but how do you rank them, would you say?
That's a changing equation because not that I'll talk details of revenue, but we started in watch retail, distributing Doxer and Hamilton and a few of these brands. It was 15-20% of our revenue, and media was 80%.
Wow.
And then in a short time, retail became 50%, then 60, then 70. And now between collaboration like Tag Heuer a couple of weeks ago and
Yeah,
through
congrats on that.
distribution of brands. Thanks, man. It was a really fun one. I can't believe they let us do all that. That's another story. But between collaborations and distribution and consignment and all of the retail dynamics we have now, that it's substantially bigger than media. So I would say that media, though, is our unfair advantage, and it's something I continue to invest heavily in. Like, we've got a massive team. We've got a team that's as big as or if not bigger than your Fratellas, your monochromes. I don't know where Hodinkie's at these days. I know there's been some big changes over there, but
Yeah.
we have it's a sort of a almost indefensibly expensive part of the business, but it's a sign of how much I value that that this unfair advantage. It is the reason we have a media store is because a retail store is because we are known as a media outlet. And I don't want to become a brand that just transitions to retail and sort of leaves it as a poor cousin. And
Mhm.
I'm a media guy, whereas like I'm a journalist, and my passion, my greatest, hopefully my greatest skill is in writing, actually, more than hosting and video and stuff. But it's what I was wanted to do with the rest of my life. So even if you become this retail impresario, I'll still be doing media because that's what I like to do more than anything. I mean, there's the novelty of having customers. Maybe in a year or two, I'll be less addicted to that part of it. But media is inextricably part of Time and Tide, and I think that even in years to come, where there may be more Time and Tide Discovery Studios around the world, it's important to me that someone goes, "Oh yeah, that's Time and Tide." There's also a big website, or there's a big channel, there's big social media presence. I don't want that to fade as the retail star rises, because that is the part of this dynamic we have with people that I
Mhm.
feel makes it so much less transactional, is that you've got accountable people that are accountable to their opinions, and the watches we sell, everything in here is curated by people. If the media was turned off, that would all go away and it would just be a shop. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, the good
not
news is the
not on
media
my
will
watch. Can I
never.
say that? Actually, that's not a bad pun. Not
Eh,
on my watch, Wes.
well, I mean, the good news is media will never go away because people will always want information, right? And not necessarily opinions, but information. And
It's
oftentimes both.
Yeah, look, watching, and it's an unfair advantage. You got to look at your stack and say what part of this is really going to be hard for someone else to replicate.
Mhm.
And this is true because, speaking of Wave, but they wrote a story about how retailers are joining media. They're pinching all the best talent from media. So what do you know? Retailers need to retrofit a media department. So if we already have that, we're retrofitting retail. So I'm kind of going the other way, actually, where I'm now seeking the best retail talent to join us here in the studios. But we'll never turn it off, and it'll always be needed. But it's just, how much do you spend on that side of the business? Because it's a hungry, and it's a burdensome thing, being a media business. It's definitely, that fatherhood book I did was really time consuming, and
Mhm.
certainly not sustainable. Like custom publishing, doing books like that, as cool as it was to get all those celebrities involved and to do something that had its moment. It's making money out of media is tough, especially with a big family. Like it keeps coming back to family, but when there's, three little girls running around with a future ahead of them, and they say, Daddy, how's your story going that you're filing to a newspaper to be published today? Or how's that book that you're going to release and sell 1,000 copies of going? Or it's kind of, oh, it's bracing to think that's the future that that's my plan. So
Yeah.
there were many light bulb moments where it was like, yeah, this can't be my plan.
No, I hear you. I there's no way you're going to be able to answer this question. I don't think. But is there a
I like
particular
a challenge.
is there yeah, I know you do. Is there a particular article that you're like you really hang your hat on that you've written? Like where you're just like, "Oh man, just right out of the hand, I knew it was a strikeout." Like I got this guy.
There's one that goes way back, and I actually wrote it for Way at Revolution a long time ago. But it was about a time. It was one of these anecdotes that was just stranger than fiction. So
Hmm.
I was flying to New York for the Roger Federer interview, which led to this light bulb moment that kind of led to Time and Tide actually. But that's not the story. The story is that on the plane, a guy offered me $10,000 cash for my watch and had the cash in his bag. And it was a Panerai. It was my Pam. Well, I think it's a 111, like a bulk standard steel Panerai. We're sitting there in business because I was being flown by Moet Hennessy, so the whole thing was paid for. It was a schmoozy GQ for Mill. I was writing for GQ Australia,
Sweet.
and this dude was like, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's a Panerai." And he's like, "Tell me about it." And I told him about this watch and the fact that I'd been wearing it when my first daughter was born, and I just was got all sentimental. We were like fucking several liters of champagne into the
Yeah.
flight, and those super strong bonds that can be formed at 36,000 feet that are
100%.
they evaporate the lower you go. Like by the
Yeah,
time
you're
you've
not
landed, you kind of
yeah, how pressurized is this cabin? You know?
exactly what. And we were just on it, and it was sometimes in on a flight you'll sit next to some random person and you both just get into a drinking cadence. And this is at a point where it was my first trip away since I'd had a kid, I think, and I was just like, I'm on
Yeah.
here. I've got no crying baby. This is on. So I was telling him all these stories about the watch, and and then he's like, I want to buy it off you. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's nice, man. Yeah. At the time, I think in Aussie, it was worth maybe 6 or 7. And he's like, how much? I said, no, 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 I'm not selling it. So I wrote this column for Revolution right before Time and Tide was a thing. I should have had a Time and Tide example. This is very bad of me, but
No, that's okay.
never died. It just kept being republished and republished because it told the whole story and how the thought process I went through of this guy's drunk and stupid. Like I should take his money, but I was drunk and stupid as well. So yeah, not to kill there is a spoiler there because I didn't take the money because I realized that, oh man, I've convinced myself that this is like a really special watch that I should never sell. And like a week later I sold it, or no, sorry, like however long later I sold it anyway. But it was just it was a story that I wrote as it was happening. I'm like, no one's gonna believe this, especially
Well,
when he had the money in his bag. I'm like, this guy's a drug dealer for sure. But it was quite an experience.
well, when you cross border check too, they want to know if you have more than $10,000 in cash on you. So he was probably he was probably trying to get rid of the cash.
There was a lot of reasons that I didn't take that money, mostly for the fear of being arrested coming into JFK. But yeah, that's a story that I do reflect on sometimes and go, yeah. And then of course that led to the Federer story, which I told on About Effing Time, which was this crazy moment where yeah, maybe I'll leave that one. But that there was two incredible watch stories from that trip. But that first one, not taking the money for a totally standard Panerai, was is one that it always got a huge engagement because everyone's like, who wouldn't sell that?
Right.
But then
Right.
there's just as many going as if you would have totally been arrested. That was drug money. it's just one of those. It just ticked all the boxes. It's a good one.
So what provoked you to sell it ultimately? I mean, you were wearing it when your daughter was born, right? So obviously you're not emotional in the sense where you're attaching events to watches. So
No, yeah, it was. I find myself quite mercenary actually, and I feel that we get really sentimental about. I don't know. I sound like a monster right now. I can totally imagine. I've lost everybody, but no, I don't. I just feel that I can create emotion and a story and a compelling reason to do something around anything. My wife accuses me of this all the time. And while that is a fairly, when you say it out loud, I feel kind of like an asshole now. Um,
no, but that can be very natural though. Like basically, I mean, if you're anything like me, and I think you are, I think if we're in the same world, this orbit, I think we're gonna. The Venn diagram is present, right? There's going to be some overlap. We are going to be able to sell ourselves a product better than anybody.
I wonder what you're going to say there, but I absolutely, you've nailed it. I'm so suspicious of myself. So when I start laying it on thick, going like, oh man, at Patek Travel Time, Aquanaut's just come up. Like, that this is so significant to you because it was the watch you were looking at when your daughter first swam in. Like, you can make some bullshit up.
100%.
But this one, I was just like, you know what? I'm kind of over Panerai right now, and something else came up that I wanted, like a Jaeger called something something. I'm like, yeah, and my dealer's always dangling stuff in front of me, going, I'll tell you what, I'll trade that plus 1,000 cash for this ultra thin jersey. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that deal. And I'm always moving around with that stuff. I've slowed down a lot. This is like 13, 14 years ago. So,
Wow.
this is a while back, but yeah, I did sell the watch, which is really it's a terrible punchline, but that's
Did you
the
get 10K for it?
I'm giving. No, hell no. I got like six in a trade. It was it was definitely something I personally reflected on and just went, if I could have one sliding doors moment back and just
Mm,
see where life would have gone if I'd have
yeah.
taken that deal. That's one of the things I'm like, I should have just taken that 10K and seen what happened.
Sure, sure. I mean, but it's also kind of like, oh man, I should have bought Apple when. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of that
Just
mentality.
about a story to hang your hat on. Like,
Oh no, no, I love that. I love
so
it.
many. It's just one of these ones where even telling, I never told that story on About Effing Time ever. It completely slipped my mind. But when you said, hey, have you got a story that just came out of the hand perfect? It's like, well, that was one. That experience was just as it was happening. I'm like, this is a story. No one is going to believe this is real life.
Yeah. No, I like it. Actually, I didn't know about that story either, so I'm going to have to comb through the Revolution back catalog and find it.
It's got a really great illustration, actually. Someone did a really good job on that one. It was, but this is
Sweet.
this is really going way back. So thanks for
Nice.
giving me the memories. And somehow, yeah, Way's come up like 5 times in this chat somehow.
Right. No, that's great.
On to someone else.
What so you mentioned investment and stuff like that with regards to brick and mortar. Obviously, it's capitally intensive. Buying
Mhm.
inventory, even if it's wholesale price, you gotta have a lot of it, right? So, um, did you seek out investment? Did you take out a loan, or do you have partners now that you didn't before?
So I'll start on the first point, which is that, and not to give too much of the magic away,
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm sure people figured it out anyway. But we don't run that heavy on capital investment with inventory. We are quite bullish with our agreements with our
Okay.
partners, which is that we run inventory light. We do a bit of consignment. We have a very, I would say, I have a CFO and a GM that are very creative with the way that we can make this possible, because we want to enter retail as an alternative offering, but also with an alternative dynamic, an alternative business model,
Hmm.
because we feel that there are a lot of issues with traditional watch retail, and having to funnel out stock to great dealers, it cents in the dollar is not something we're ever interested in doing. Like, we're kind of, we want to provide these brands without a retail channel with a an elevated platform, and we don't want to be corroding their brand equity by having a discount site pumping away on the side.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
want them to be showing up on like a Baltic to be showing up on Joma Shop, or I mean, this is definitely a way that we sell the alternative retail offer to these brands as well, which is that we will never discount ever. We don't do any sales of any kind. We don't ever dump stock. So
Right.
while it's a bit of a stinger sometimes for us to not just be buying tons and tons of stock of theirs at wholesale, I think we all agree that there's with creative, uh, with creativity and with really great communication and a really fluid sort of supply chain and logistics, we're just continually replenishing. We're running really light. We have enough in cabinets to keep people coming in. I have to pull you up a little bit and say that we absolutely would not have been able to do this as a traditional retail watch
Mm,
shop. We
okay.
wouldn't be able to say to every brand we're going to buy, and we don't get the ranging stuff. Like, I don't know anything about watch retail, but I know that when Hamilton, for example, came into Australia, they're like, "Oh yeah, you can distribute us, but here's our ranging requirements. Here's the number of pieces you have to buy. Here's the watches you have to buy." And I was just shocked. I'm like, but I only want khaki fields.
Right.
Like, I don't want anything. I don't want jazz masters. What is this? This is outrageous. I was so naive.
Right.
I truly came into it having no idea about all of these, the way that retail works. But we've been fortunate as well as bullish and fairly stubborn in that we haven't kowtowed to that dynamic.
Mhm.
For ultimately the brands, I think now would probably say, yeah, some of the reasons were quite correct. We've never discounted and we've never done stock, and we've helped raise their brand equity. And for many of these brands, like we've truly have given them a quantum leap away from the trestle table at
Yeah,
the wind up fair or whatever else is their option to in terms of retail channels. So
sure.
um, it's different. But okay, so to get into to get into the good stuff, we did take an investor in the UK. In Australia, we scratched together for the fit out in Melbourne. So we have a flagship in Melbourne that is the blueprint for what's here in London. London's actually better. I'm afraid to say that we did take this blueprint or this flagship kind of design in Melbourne and add like a pub corner over there, which has black wood paneling and these brass picture lamps, and it just looks like the corner. It's got like a modern version of a Chesterfield, so it just looks like a British pub in the corner.
Nice.
There's the white room, which is like this beautiful kind of exhibition space.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the Baltic night mode there on the wall you can see, which is one of our studio editions. So yeah, we scratched together for Melbourne, and then when it came time for the UK, we had an investor that's connected to one of the executive team in our business, and yeah, he's just said, "I'm in for the ride. I don't want anything to do with your strategy." He said, "As far as I can tell, it's sound." We had to present. We had to tell him the plan,
Sure.
of course, and we had to, I suppose, lay out some sort of a attractive remuneration idea around how this is all going to grow. But yeah, we were really fortunate to have this perfect investor who has cheered from the sidelines and wants to be sent every link to everything that's ever said about us. But we took an investor for the build here. But then yeah, things like the Tag Heuer collaboration, some of these big lumpy moments on the P&L have really helped take care of that quickly. So
Yeah.
we're in a good place, but we're still entirely independent. There is no big investor behind this apart from that single invest that we took on outside of the existing team.
That's awesome. Now, we can talk about this or not. I can edit this out. You let me know. What are his expectations? I'm assuming it's a man, but that may be very sexist of me. But this person who's the investor, um, what are their expectations as far as like the return on the investment? Do they see like an annual thing, or is it like a when you get to X, buy me out? Like what does that even look like?
I'm not dodging the question when I say that he will just want the standard 10x or whatever that number is in his mind.
Yeah.
There's He believes that we have a path to uh, that sort of a growth figure for him,
Hmm.
but he's patient in that there's no time pressure, and
So he's a true like angel investor.
he's a true silent and angel investor.
Yeah.
And look, he's already seen in terms of there's already been significant growth for him in that original investment.
Sweet.
And then things like Christopher Ward announcing Time and Tide as their first ever retailer in this pilot program we're doing with them. There's a lot of markers for success in addition to the revenue,
Hmm.
and we've been really lucky, man. Like I'm sort of verbalizing these things just feels like sometimes a little, there's a superstitious
Surreal.
part of me that's like, dude, shut up. Like don't don't go on a podcast and talk about these things because it doesn't sound, there's a part of me that's getting superstitious when I talk about these
I
things.
see. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, no, you don't want to jinx
It's
it.
just, I don't want to jinx it, but we got Ward in 6 weeks of opening, and this was a brand that do 50 million pounds in revenue, and it it's a zeitgeist in this country. You have no idea about Christopher Ward in the UK until you come here.
Hmm.
Everyone in Australia loves Ward. I think that the last run of Wards, particularly the Belcanto, is just extraordinary. How they're continuing to actually transform their brand positioning and
Yep.
esteem the brand has. GPHG awards, chiming watches at under £3,500. Like it's super exciting. But I would say that our investors tracking our success on multiple metrics. Again, this is the perfect investor. It's not someone that's looking at the bottom line saying, what percentage are we up month on month, year on year. He's looking at our objectives were to provide an alternative to become to change the way the world experiences watches and
Sure.
become the world's biggest alternative retailer. And so far so good.
All right, I want to talk about the solograph.
Cool. Let's do that.
I mean, by the time this releases, obviously, I mean, this is old news, borderline. But how did it start? You guys crushed it. You have rose gold mixed with titanium. Like, who the hell does that?
I
Um,
know. I know.
and I'm also as a sidebar, I'm on like this huge Tag Heuer kick right now. And if I may, because I'd love your opinion, um, I had the Hodinkee Dado, the black dial, the asymmetrical. I had that. I say past tense because it was part of the consolidation for the Longa last year.
Okay. Yep.
When I look at my Longa 1, I do not see a Dado anymore, trust me. However, I do miss that watch. That's one of the ones that I'm just like, God, I miss it. Could I buy it again? Sure. The thing that I hated about it was the rotor was so freaking loud.
Too loud.
And it sounded like plastic. And as somebody who is aesthetically driven, that audible thing drove me crazy. No matter how good looking that watch was, it drove me nuts. So I'm thinking vintage Heuer chronograph,
Yep.
or like God, what was it? The 30th anniversary reissue from the 60s. I think it came out in 96. It's the all black, black, black.
It's a winner.
36 millimeter.
Oh, gorgeous.
13 millimeters thick, though. It's a chunky monkey.
They always still are, man. They're still using the Hero 2, which is making their chronographs, yeah, that's often up to 15. Like the Carrera Hero 2 chronographs are 15 mil. So
Yeah.
just to jump into the Solograph on that for that reason, the slimness of the Solograph is just chef's kiss, and
Mm.
yeah, can only be achieved with tag with quartz. So that was part of the reasoning. But I did love that Dado. I mean, the Skipper, the they were pitch perfect. I
Hmm.
found that it was a little, the Dado was a little it's plain, but in a
Oh,
classy
yeah.
way.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm a minimalist at best. This doesn't really look like it, but I am. Like it's
He's pointing to his background, which is actually it's sort of perfectly organized chaos.
yeah, my wife calls it the museum.
But it's all it's he's the classy guy. We know that.
Right.
It's actually perfect. It's perfectly curated chaos.
Oh, well, thanks for that.
But I
Yeah.
know what you mean about there's nothing worse than a noisy rotor. Like I had a this is going way back. At one point, I somehow ended up with a Bowman Mercier Capeland World Timer, and that thing was like a bag of Skittles. Just it rattled, and it was I could hear the tilt on the rotor as well. It was not good, and that was not long for this world for that reason. So I hear you on that, man. That's legit. That's a legit complaint.
Wow. Okay, so how did the how did the interaction come about? Was it your idea? Did they reach out to you and want to do a collab? Was this store related in any way?
Not at all. No.
Okay.
It ended up being store related because it was the first event we held in London. It was the opening of the studio was to celebrate the Sundowner.
Hmm.
It was just it was dinners. It was these Tag Heuer dinners that I would go to before Watches and Wonders, and for whatever reason, I think three dinners in a row, I sat next to Frederick Arnault, who was at that time the super young, like youngest CEO ever for a Tag Heuer and probably for an LVMH watch brand at that point. And
Hmm.
I'd sort of been on board Frederick's journey from like I was his first interview, I think, ever from the boardroom of like ASIN, which is one of the tag places, and I was in Australia, and he had a chaperone in the room for this interview, and I remember thinking, this is crazy. This guy's just too young
Right.
to be in control. I was and just wasn't. I think it was at that early in those early times for Frederick, it was overwhelming for for him to be sort of running this big company at this point. But he so quickly grew into the role, and these dinners started to happen. And the first one just got to know each other, and I somehow ended up sitting next to Frederick at these dinners. And Australia is just massively overrepresented in the tag world. Like, it's not uncommon for Australia to be the second biggest tag market
Wow.
after the States. Uh,
Wonder why.
yeah, it's well, there's an answer to that, which is it's kind of it's a long story, but bottom line is a retailer in their wisdom put Tag Heuer into duty-free stores in airports during the Japanese tourist explosion in Australia, and it just led to them being this ubiquitous Australian luxury watch brand.
Mm.
And they were also they did jewelry collaborations before that with some of the jewelers in Australia. And in Australia, it's not uncommon to hear someone say, "I'm going to," instead of saying "I'm going to get my first good watch," they say, "I'm going to get a tag," and they'll then go and buy a Longines or a Rolex, but I'm going to get a tag. It's shorthand.
For a watch. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's fascinating. Wow.
we're really Tag Heuer focused. So I think I'd get the seat next to CEO because Australia was a really important market, and Time and Tide is just sort of we were the Australian media contingent, the biggest Australian media contingent. So second dinner, we just start talking about. He's like, "Oh, hey, I really like kite surfing. Could you think of anything? Could we do anything around kite surfing?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, cool. But now we're talking watches. Let's." So then we started thinking, okay, well, titanium, robust, and then he's like, "What about a solograph?" And then it turned out, and then the third dinner is like, "Look, we haven't done an Australian limited edition for like decades. So why don't we do this water sports Tag Heuer uh, solograph? Give me a story." And then the pain began because by year two or whatever this was, three, Frederick is now a boss. He has dramatically grown into his role. He changed a lot of Jean-Claude Bibber's strategy. He reversed a lot of decisions that Jean-Claude Bibber made around connected watch. It was impressive. This growth before your eyes of this leader. And then suddenly I'm feeling the blowtorch of like, Andrew, what have you got? What's the story? So then that began this long and mostly unsuccessful kind of pitch process of, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And each time I'd be like, no, no, no. But then we did hit something when I came on this combination of first Tag Heuer on a fabric strap, um, first Tag Heuer with titanium and rose gold, that luxed up this kind of, and then pitched in the Australian adventurer aesthetic, like the whole kind of Steve Irwin,
Yeah.
you know, something that touches that really romantic notion of Australia. He was just like, bang the table. Yes, done. Let's go. And then all the problems went away. All the Suddenly the road was completely clear, and all of these reasons I'd had, oh no, to do an edition with us takes years and years and years. It was just suddenly like, Frederick has said this is happening, so it's happening now.
Wow.
Off we went. Yeah, and it
So
was
when you pitch, sorry to interrupt, when you pitch titanium and rose gold, are you pitching specific bits of the watch being rose gold, or are you
oh
just
yeah, man.
ruminating over the
I'm giving
specific
detailed
detail? Yeah,
renders.
yeah.
I've got a render guy who is pornographic. He can make a watch that doesn't exist look so real.
Wow.
And it's just mouth-watering. And I've got him working on some stuff at the moment. And I just think there's just no way the brand's going to say no when they see this, because people eat with their eyes with these types of visions. Oh, imagine a titanium watch with 18 karat 5N rose gold. And like people are just like, dude, what? No, I don't want to imagine that. That's like completely contradictory. Like a tool watch with precious metal. It sort of didn't make sense. But then this render, and then of course I had some highly poetic story alongside it saying, when the sunlight touches the galvanic sheen of the Australian Eastern Ocean, you get this glimmer of gold on a grey surface. And I'm just, I'm going to town on the storytelling side, and we had a winner, so we got it across the line.
Oh man, that's amazing. What was the retail on that?
27 pounds, so like maybe
Wow.
4,000 US.
And how many pieces?
We did 250.
Nice.
Yeah. So we kept it pretty achievable, I think, but it's not a time for limited editions, whereas like
Oh,
a lot of that era is over.
you think so?
You need to well, I think that you got to work hard for the money, man. Like
Yeah.
all the stuff I just talked about, the imagery. I spent so much money capturing this watch. I had a guy shooting stills. I had a guy shooting social video. I had a guy doing renders of the renders. Like I just I wanted to create something. I think you need to a watch needs to be a passport to a better life, a different life, something that you're
Hmm.
lacking. And you need to sell that in through the storytelling around the watch. And I think that we all got a little complacent. I think that through that gold rush of, you know, new media collaborations every month or week, I felt like at a point where it was just this rush of like some sort of cobbled together story with a hooky name.
Yeah.
Uh, that there needed to be there needed to be a correction where the work had to be put in again. But I love that work, man. If you give me a watch that moves me, um, there's nothing I like more than putting together this visual story and this soundscape that is gonna have someone go, "That's what I need.
Yeah.
That's gonna that's gonna improve my life in some way, or that's gonna unlock some part of me that has been dormant." Or I sound like an ad guy. I sound like this is like a John Draper speech, but it truly has to sell them something that they feel they lack that will complete them in some way.
Right. It's got to make you feel something, you know?
And that's hard, man. In a world of fucking churn and burn and fast moving, flick, 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 3 second rule on TikTok or 2 second rule. It's like you got no time to make that emotion stick. And I think, it's the challenge of what we do that is keeps me up at night the most. But when it hits and you know that you've hit a chord, like with that particular watch,
Hmm.
that it kind of was a bit of a throwback to the peak, you know, of that era where like the Dinky Skipper, or trying to think of like, what do you reckon were the hypiest media collab pieces? You know, that was pretty wild. The Corners of Ash. Trying to think of the Revolution. There was some Revolution watches that were just wild as well. But yeah, it was a bit of a throwback to that period where it's just like, man, there's a synergy here that's really powerful.
I mean, the revolution that I always think of, not always, but I think most of now is the Chopard.
Yeah.
That piece, yeah, that thing is just, it's so good. I mean, I just love that watch in general, right? So like any iteration, I'm just like, yes, you know. Whereas like, and no shade at Omega, but like, how many bits of the moon are we talking? The dark side, the gray side, the lit side. Like, I don't know. Like, I. But to your point, it's we went through this sort of timeline where collaborations started to feel like that. We were just like, oh my god, okay, limited, create urgency, you know, and it's this like manufactured
And the
urgency.
next one, and
Yeah,
the next one.
right.
And look, we look, they're an important part of our business, and we will do more. But
Sure.
every one of them will have oxygen. It'll have foreplay. It'll have reveal. It'll have second wave when people start getting them and sharing them. It'll have like, we create space for these things because it needs it. Like, it's a
Mm-hmm.
dream. It needs to breathe. It needs to build. Like, it's like anything else. You know, you just you yeah. And that, but then that transactional commercial underpinning to some of those projects is, we've never had to do that because we've
Mm-hmm.
never had investors saying to us, you need to do more of this. You need to do
Right.
50 a year. You know, like, it's often not the media themselves that are choosing that frequency. It's, you know, sometimes you got people breathing down your neck.
Yeah. There's somebody sitting at a table telling you. Yep, I get it. Um, Speaking of breathing room, we you alluded to about effing time a couple times already in this chat. You guys were what, 18 months in. I can't believe it's been a year since you guys did it, right? Other than the one last month. So it was basically 12 months of breathing room, I'll call it. And then so whose idea was it to come back? And how did you guys meet? Did you just like meet at Watchers and Wonders or like
Yeah, we totally did. I knew Adrian before.
okay.
I asked him to be the UK editor of Time and Tide, like 6 months into his YouTube channel, because I'm like, the dude's got talent. So I
Yeah.
was like a very outed fan of Adrian's. Pretty much, I mean, I was shocked that I could be so impressed by someone walking around with a selfie stick and a wired set of headphones and a coffee, and he's just walking around like looking slightly disorientated and just making like just this sort of monologue about watches. I'm like, why am I so compelled? So I chased him straight up and said, Adrian, please be my UK Time and Tide guy. Like, you're great. It was just that simple.
Right.
And we had a long chat, and I was trying to paint a picture of, oh, you know, one day we're gonna get out of Australia. I'm gonna escape this earthly bonds of, because Australia is like, Melbourne's the most remote capital city to Switzerland on the planet. So I really wanted to. I had the spirit was so willing to get someone like Adrian on board. And he said, "Let me give me a weekend to think about it." And then he called me back on the Monday. He's like, "You know what, man? I'm not going to take the deal." And I was like, "Thank you for telling me, man to man. I appreciate that. All the best. I'm watching you anyway. So keep fighting the good fight."
Right.
On About Effing Time, he reveals that he then over the weekend decided that because of this vote of confidence that he would quit his job and start Bark and Jack. So
Wow.
did I not get Adrian? I created a competitor. So that's our little funny potted story. But George Waco did a video with George and I where he introduced us, and we were just kind of pretty pretty broed up straight away. I just loved his energy. I loved his positivity. I loved his childish um, energy. I couldn't. I found him irresistible.
Right.
He's this big, beautiful kid who would on all of our chats would just be, I don't know, we just instantly hit it off in a big way. So, but we'd never met in person. I never met Adrian in person. And then we each arrive at this point in Watches and Wonders from different, right outside, it was right outside Rolex actually, in that spot. You can probably picture it, Patek across the way, and then there's that big crossroads there. So we met in that middle and just were like, oh, hey. And then Marcus, my videographer, was there, and I'm just like, just start filming. And
I was like, I feel like I've seen this video, which I didn't realize that was it. Wow.
that again at the start. I'm like, start filming. You see the whole thing. You see us see each other for the first time. So it's quite trippy, actually, to see a moment like that captured with no premeditation. It was wild. So that was where we met. And then George, being George, is just this big Labrador, like, oh, we should do that again. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to happen again, man. Adrian's too busy. How could we ever do this logistically? I'm sort of a downer. And he just kept going, we should do this again. And George just doesn't take no for an answer, which, is something that later I learned as well in the show. But he just wouldn't let rationality take control. And you know what? He was right. When Adrian and I connected, and I said, hey, have you spoken to George? He's really keen for us to do that again. He's like what? Like run into each other again? I'm like, no, to like do a video again. He's like, okay. And he said, I've actually been thinking I'd like to do something that isn't just me. So I was like, oh. He's like, what about you? I said, well, yeah, okay. I'm in London in a month or something. And so, yeah, we did the first season in like 2 days. We did the whole sort of whatever it was, 12 episodes or 10 episodes in a couple of days. And we realized
way.
we can pull this thing off where we appear to the world like we're together all the time. But we just done these short bursts. So then we did a second burst and then a third burst, and Range Rover came on and Four Pillars came on, and some of these brands wanted to be a part of it. And it just kind of built quickly. And yeah, it just took on a life of its own. And this thing just kind of, yeah, at different times, it just felt like it was this big, powerful, dangerous, destructive thing, actually, because it so quickly became about our audience and the people that watched it, and we gave them so much. We created a lot of space for them with the live streams, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was really a wild experience, actually. I'm not going to lie. Like we had, I think, 4 million views a month for 18 months or 17 months. Like, it's so quickly just went bang to, it didn't build like this. It just kind of went, it went like this, and then it just went like this, and then it stayed there the whole time. And it scared the shit out of us, I think, a little bit.
Wow. So how did you know it was time to come back and do kind of a reunion, B, kind of the 2024 recap?
Well, that was a perfect serendipity moment. It was like, we decided that we'd launch the studio here in London by doing the Tag Heuer event, the Sundowner event, and then run that straight into. So I don't know if you caught wind of that pizza watch thing we did last year, Richard and I from Studio Underdog.
Peripherally, yes.
Yeah, so we did this, quite egregious human experiment of doing the hand-delivered Studio Underdog pizza watch, which you could only get in person. And we launched that, and then the first big moment that people could come and get that was at British Watchmakers Day last year. And this was just, I have never experienced an industry set to boil like the British watch industry in March last year. I think it was March the 8th, 2024. It was red hot. We turned up in chef outfits, and it was a rock star moment that I will never have again. I do not expect this lightning to strike twice. It was just absolutely, and I took my daughter thinking it was going to be this quiet Sunday at like a geeky watch fair, and it was nuts. So based on the success of that, we thought after the Tag event, we'll confuse people even more about our space by then having a British watch weekender. And we got all the best British watch brands, Bremont, Bark and Jack,
Mm-hmm.
Bamford. You're seeing how this happened here.
Sure.
Ward, Fears, Farah, Vertex, all the best, all the favorites. Um, Duckworth, Prestex, Isotope, Beaufort, Brooklands. Just trying to think, just every British brand you've ever heard of, and many you haven't, sort of just crashed into our space for a weekend, and we had 600 people through. And because Adrian and George were going to be there anyway, I fired up the About Effing Time WhatsApp chat that had like these very like tumbleweeds of funny memes, like maybe 12 memes over the 12 months. It just popped up. Like I'd see something funny and put it on the chat, and then be like an emoji response. And then Adrian would be somewhere and send like a meme of something, and we'd all just fucking laugh. And that that was all it had been in the chat. No words, no conversation.
That's
They
hilarious.
are a Merry Christmas. Like this funny little, very, very dusty chat. And I was like, oh, I felt like I was texting an ex or something. I just wrote, hey boys, we're gonna be in the same space anyway. Thank you so much for, because it was a paid gig. They paid to be part of the British Weekender, which I really appreciated as well, actually. So I just said, hey boys, thank you so much for joining the fun. We're going to be in the same space for 2 days. I know what's going to happen. We're going to catch up. We're going to sit down in a corner and we're going to have a chat. And at the end of that, we're going to say we should have recorded that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So why don't we just jump to the part where we record it and do it like a show? And all the watches are going to be in the studio. I'll make sure the retail guys, one of them stays behind for a night. So because of the weird celebrity status of this show, even with my own team, we did this kind of weird thing where I'm like, all right, I'm going to lock the shop. I'm going to not tell anyone what's happening. And but I'm going to tell one retail guy to tell everyone to go home. And I'm going to get him to leave everything in the cabinets. And then you guys come in at like 10 o'clock and we'll do a show in here, and I'll have the keys to the whole place so we can pull out watches from all the British brands. So that's what we did. That's how it came to light. I had Alex from our team say, all right, good night, guys. See you later. Turn off the lights, sort of thing. And then the show starts with us walking in, the lights coming on, and everything's laid out because I wanted the show to have, instead of it just being about us and all of our chit chat, which I realize is actually what people want to see anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I always like to try to push us to have things to talk about, because my biggest gripe with watch podcasts is there's way too much navel gazing and just, oh man, give people a show. Like, let's entertain people. And that was at the heart of, like, are we entertaining people with this shit? And then that's
Right.
why the show kind of went to these stupid heights of having these opening sequences. All of this dumb stuff we did. It was so fun. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't fun. Of course it was fun, but I pushed us to do a similar sequence for this. So we ended up saying, all right, cool. Well, let's walk in together. And then that was kind of the first time they'd come in a lot of ways. Their teams had set up their displays. So they walked in, and that's all very live and real, them going, okay, shit, here we are.
Wow.
That's how it came to be.
I love the part coming out of the tube station. That's just so great.
It was so like, we got so lucky because the lights for Christmas went on like that day. So all of those Christmas lights as you go down Regent Street and Oxford Street, it was all perfectly timed to happen just as we came in. And George, it was really, really, really sweet actually. George's son was there while we were
Cool.
filming, and watching a young teenager watch the show and be like really into it it was awesome that he came, because we ended up kind of playing to him as an audience member, and it was awesome.
Right.
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, that's great. I know you schedule recovery periods.
How
Now,
do you know that?
I don't know where I heard this, honestly, but I know you do this. And I want to know more about it. Is it more mental? Is it work related? Or is it just physical, meaning recovery as in from training? or is it all of the above? Tell me about these recovery periods that I know about and you didn't know that I knew about.
Um, have you ever flown to Australia?
No, Singapore, yes, but not Australia. So I've been on some long flights.
2/3 of the way at 1624. Yeah, it's 2/3 of the way. Uh, y- if you fly to Australia and you've done it, I think that was my 51st return flight from Europe to Australia.
Wow.
You need to build in some recovery time, dude. Like that's just, and the reason I put this in my recovery time, because maybe that's how you know about it. I think maybe I told you that this was my recovery week and that I was going to make an exception.
Oh, maybe that was it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I knew I would look forward to this chat because I've listened to so many Standard Age podcasts. I'm like, this is going to be so crazy. This is going to be like being inside the computer. It's going to be like this is going to be so.
The sausage is being made.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Who's the sausage? Are we both being made? I don't know. Are we both ingredients? I don't know. It's not.
That's a different discussion. You know, that's a 36,000 foot discussion under alcohol.
We need several liters of moderate champagne. Yeah, I build in recovery. I'm increasingly getting. I realize that all I have every day is my energies. And I realized that as a 48-year-old dude, managing my energies is the most important thing. And there's a kind of a plucky bravado and an endless source of energy that you have in your 20s and maybe your 30s if you've played, if you're smart, you've kept yourself classy for your 30s. But in your 40s, it just takes a little more mindfulness to do what I'm doing with Time and Tide and have a family of three girls under 11 and have a relationship that's critical to me, my wife, and continuing to invest in that one on one. And this happy wife, happy life thing is it's a cliche, but it takes energy as well and time. So we have time together between all of those interests and a team here that I want to emotionally connect with a lot and keep buoyed and spirits up and a broader team. Man, it's managing energies and building in recovery, whether it's a trip to Australia or there are just periods I know where if I look at a hectic schedule, my time will get filled if I don't block it out. So I build in my diary has a lot of recovery time sections. And if I choose to fuck with that and let someone into that, it has to be something that gives me energy. And I knew that today would give me energy because I was excited, man.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, and likewise, for sure. I have started to do the same, though I didn't really have a title for it necessarily. Um, but I'm so bad at managing it. I need to pay myself more respect in my own time because I can allow things to infiltrate my quote free time or recovery time so quickly. And it could be a phone call, it could be a text message, it could be. Now, I'm not saying I shouldn't respond to those things, but the ramifications of said call, said text, because you don't know what's coming through the horn when you answer that call. You know, it could be devastating news. It could be your manufacturer telling you, Wesley, I'm sorry, we actually can't find your fabric. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I know. The
And
equilibrium you had to that moment is gone and it ain't coming back.
no, and it could just send you on one, more importantly. And I'm not one to drink when I'm mad necessarily, but I'm also not, you know, and it's just like, shit, I'm pouring me a stiff bourbon now, you know,
And you know what
and
your plan is? Your plan for the day is gone, and like you've let that
totally.
happen.
Yeah. And so I just need to be better about putting up those guardrails and sticking to them. So I applaud you
About
for
it in
doing that.
terms of manage. Well, think about it in terms of managing energies because it's like Gary Vee's all about the attention economy and how the attention is your number one asset. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it's not attention, it's energy.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a saying that I think I use as twee as it sounds. It's just true. Where your gaze goes, your energy flows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just very careful what I look at, what I put on fixed places like my lock screen on my phone. And I just am very careful with my energy because that's increasingly, I'm amazed at how much energy I'm managing to create on a daily
Yeah.
basis and how much energy I have to do what I do. But that's because if you succeed in this phase of your life, if you're kind of succeeding, a lot of what you're doing is giving you energy back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you absolutely have to choose where your gaze is going, and you have to manage that energy level because that's all you got. And if you squander it, if you're looking at dumb stuff that's not giving you anything, you're kind of wasting your bullets. And I
Yeah.
find that recovery, where in those times where I have shocking jet lag, as I have had the last 5 or 6 days,
Sure.
I, I'm just not going to, no longer am it's just not in anyone's interest for me to be stacking those days with activities because
Yeah.
to, to recharge the engines and come back to this team full of energy. Like I didn't want to walk in this door with, 8 guys in here kind of, and girls just looking at me going, how is he? Because sometimes you would know this with a team that whether you like it or not, your everything about you is influencing your team,
Sure.
their read on how we're doing, how we feeling.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really important. But I think even more so than the recovery time is just continually reminding yourself that where your gaze goes, your energy flows. And I always have like a picture of Harrison Ford riding a bike with his guns out at 80 years old, or Lenny Kravitz like doing pull-ups with his top off, or
With leather pants on.
leather pants on in the gym doing. I mean, that's so much ridiculous. I do not have that. That just makes me laugh. That doesn't help me. But it's really important to these talismanic things that can pull you forward and your energy. It's amazing how much looking at that stuff can change your behavior and change. In my case, it definitely changed my health to
Yeah.
be looking at the right stuff.
Sure. You have playlists on Spotify.
Oh, so many.
What's the greatest song ever written?
This year, it's definitely "Good Luck, Babe" by Chapel Roan. I'm not really
Ah.
even a pop guy, but greatest song ever written. I was thinking about this the other day. What's yours? Just to give me a little more time to consider that.
I mean, I have a favorite. Okay, so there's like those questions, right? Like if you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what it would be? Or if you could only listen to one song the rest of your life, things like that. Honestly, like one of my favorite songs of all time is No Woman No Cry by Bob Marley. My favorite band of all time is Dave Matthews Band because of where I grew up and my age and the fact that Carter Beauford inspired me to play the drums. But I mean, if I were to listen to one catalog, I guess it would probably be Dave Matthews, but definitely the first three albums, or just the entire Led Zeppelin catalog.
I've been getting into Bonham Zeppelin. Um,
Oh yeah.
is it? I think Good Times, like
Oh
the
Jesus.
drum track in Good Times is just insane.
That bass pedal is ridiculous.
Tickum, 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 and all the flourish and flair. And I've become addicted to this channel called Drumeo. Do you watch
Okay,
Drumeo?
so I had this written down. I was going to ask you, are you a drummer or are you just a Phil Collins fan because you posted something from Drumeo? I watch Drumeo all the time.
Drumeo, if I need to, this is an overshare of the highest order. If I need to cry, if
Huh.
I need to feel, if I need to sort of untap something emotionally, I'll watch Drumeo. Watching a drummer learn a track or come up with the drum pattern for a song they've never heard before and nail it, I'm just flowing, man.
Really?
There's a recent one where the guy from, is it Youngblood? Is there a band called, is that a song? Anyway, there's a dude, an Australian guy that has to play a Megadeth song.
Oh,
I mean, there's so many great. There's this girl that has to play. Anyway, Drumeo is like Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers has to play it. What is it?
great episode.
Mars.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah, yeah,
amazing one.
yeah.
And then you've got Stuart Copeland from the Police. I'm a huge fan of the Police.
Same, same.
So much flair and his drum patterns. Like Roxanne is definitely top 10 drum tracks tracks of all time. But I just find there's something emotional about the physicality of drumming, and there's something incredibly intense for me in watching a drummer try to, like, there's that one with the guy has to learn the drum track to Numa by Tool.
Oh God, good luck. Yeah.
It's and he's just you see someone go from a total emotional cycle of total devastation and hopelessness and despair to shit, I'm slowly getting the hang of this, to oh God, I think I've got it, to I'm
Oh,
driving this.
and that was Mike Portnoy, I think, from Dream Theater. So he's like one of the most iconic
Technical
drummer,
drummers, yeah.
and even he is like, "Fuck you, Danny Carey," you know, like.
Exactly. That's the hook. So I don't know. I'm addicted to music. I'm a music journalist. First and foremost, that's what I was. That's what I wanted to be in my life. I did a book about guitars. There's a brand of guitar called Maton, and I am going to tell you the short little story because it'll blow your mind. It's an
Okay.
Australian guitar brand. Somehow, this brand of guitars ended up in the hands of Keith Richards. He wrote "Gimme Shelter" on a Maton. Elvis Presley wrote "Heartbreak Hotel" and played the video clip, or like played it live on a Maton. The Beatles wrote "Please Please Me" on a Maton. So this guitar has been the red thread through some of the greatest songs ever written and recorded. It was recorded on these guitars as well. So I wrote a book that is this thick that interviews all these musicians, including Keith Richards.
No shit.
He told us about the day, the weather, the location, the room, the window that he was sitting in with it open. It was one of these top floor windows in a London apartment, ones you could open from the floor up. So there's that bottom part. And he watched this storm rolling in, and that sense of rolling, tumbling chaos of a huge storm coming in. I'm giving myself chills as I think about this.
God knows.
Music is and this is where it all comes full circle, where I was in publishing and I just wanted to do books like this for the rest of my life, because I got to speak to Michael Franti from Spearhead, Colin Hay from Men at Work, Bernard Fanning from Powderfinger. I just went on and on. All these great bands that all wrote their music on Matons and played Matons. Colin Hay is an amazing acoustic performer. He did all the songs for Scrubs. He wrote these amazing songs on Maton guitars. So it all comes full circles. But there's something about, and I watch a lot of music is where I'm hiding when I'm not in watches.
Right.
Disappear into the musical forest. And at the moment, I'm working on my best of 2024 playlist, which no one cares about. I post it every year, my favorite watches of the year, and like 7 people respond. But I still do it out of some sense of like obligation. Like, well, even if no one cares, I'm still going to make my favorite songs of the year. But it's strangely, I've had some big wins lately since the watches thing has happened. Some of these artists will follow me for watches. So that I've got this suddenly now. I'm like, well, now I'm definitely going to do a best of, because maybe McGee will write back to me, or maybe I'm looking at my list. Maybe
That's
Robert Smith
fascinating.
from the Cure is gonna reach
Yeah.
out, because I get these odd celebrity reach outs that are on all kinds of matters. But I am working on my best of 2024. But the Drumeo is the channel that I watch that never fails to entertain, never fails to, and usually it's emotional. And I you have to watch this one. I'll send you a link to the one where the guy learns a good death song. He's an Aussie and he's from a pop band, and all he does is play 4/4, like really young blood, da 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 da. He's in that band, da 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 da. Remember that song?
I do vaguely. Yeah.
Vaguely. So he's in that band that do like pop songs, but and when he starts trying to learn this Megadeth song, you're just like, this is carnage. Stop the tape. Like, we should.
This poor man.
Poor man. But then by the end, he's sweating and he's getting it. And then the last take he does is it's better than he does this whole, he just completely reinterprets it into halftime sections. And you're just like, oh my God, he did it. And there's another one, Wolf Van Halen. who's Eddie Van Halen's son, who's a multi-instrumentalist. He does one as well. Anyway, you got me started on drumming, but as you can tell, music's just, that is, most of my brain is occupied by Slash's guitar solos. I can sing them all off by heart. So,
Andrew, this has been awesome, man. Thank you for scheduling me into your recovery time. I sincerely appreciate it. This has been a ton of fun. I've got left a lot on the table here too to bring you back for part 2. So,
I am already gonna say yes to that, no matter when it falls. But no, man, you delivered. I was expecting this to be giving as much as it takes, and it's true. It's fun, if not more fun, being on the show than it is listening to it. So I can confirm.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. All right, chat soon.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, mate.
This wraps up this episode of the Standard H podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show, as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.